closer together. Like they don't move this much, but the feeling that you'll get would be, I'm a little bit big on an inhale, I'm a little bit leaner on an exhale, but like right across here, I'm holding some tension. That's going to be telling me that I'm not letting myself open and going in this direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, can I ask one more? Sorry.
Absolutely, yes, it's helpful.
So I have MS, so I have problems with walking. Would strengthening in here and really focusing on this give me more stability so that I'm not, because I do feel like I'm constantly tipping forward.
Yes.
So like working on this and working on making sure that the hip bones are in more versus like the duck butt.
Yeah, and then they all all these relationships tend to work together, and then they'll have different ways of describing them. But like that's one of the reasons that like extension tends to be one of the first things to go after in different ways, because it leads to a lot of different issues that will tend to feel like either forward bending or some type of excessive like opening, because it's like the center of your body. Like where your hip is the center of your body. And when we're upright, which we want to do a lot of times when we function, we're looking for hip extension. But if we're limited in hip extension, we get a bunch of different compensations, right? So one of the things you want to do is sort of like challenge the idea of how much can I extend my hip by getting yourself in different positions and just seeing your stability there. So how many people when we got into kneeling felt like it was a little hard to actually balance there, like your body wanted to fall forward, right? So that's an indication right there, is that your body doesn't want to stack in that position. So the idea of hip extension in many ways is, can you be stacked from a postural standpoint? If you can't extend your hip, you can't stand upright without your head coming forward, without your butt going out. There has to be some compensation. So just getting this to zero, it doesn't have to be excessive hip extension, is hard for most people. And because there's, again, it's some type of compensation that you're going to be upright, you'll bring your gaze up, but most of the time there'll be something away from that. So if we can get that to at least be neutral or back to zero, now you actually have a chance to have your head over your shoulders, over your hips. But everything else, it would be a compensation.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Doesn't, if you have a job that's sitting down all day, won't that annoy that?
Yeah, so that's, well, it's going to make it farther from where you're going, right? And it's not just this angle here of flexion, which is, like, let's say this is what a seated position is,
Right.
but one will also do is tend to take on different positions depending on the support we have. So like, let's say we sit more on the tailbone or we slide back, that's going to actually even move us more towards flexion, because if you sit on the tailbone, you tend to, if I open up my pelvis, you see how the tailbone tucks under? Right, so there's a relationship there. The more the front of these bones open up, the more this tucks under. So if you find yourself like sitting on your tailbone, that usually means you're slumping down. You're actually farther away from extension. If you try to do the opposite, where I'm going to sit up really tall, what tends to happen is you just tip the pelvis forward and you just overarch your back. Now you get more contact with these sit bones, but again, it's just another version of bringing that pelvis forward. So yeah, getting up and moving. And
imagine having a job like that for 40 years.
well, a lot of people do. A lot of people do. So our job and our mission is to teach people to be more variable with their motion, even in a world where it's moving you away from that. How do you do that? Like, all right, 20 minutes of stillness for 2 minutes of movement, right? Sit on the ground more often, right? Even if you can do that at work, that's great. If not, don't go home and sit on a couch. You've been sitting all day at the job, right? So like, but there's a lot of stuff that's pulling us towards that. So that's just a piece of the conversation here.
That why most of them pads you put down have a little cutout?
They can, but like for your knee and for different.
For the one you sit on, the pad.
Oh yeah, they can. Like so if you're getting direct pressure through your tailbone, like some patients of mine, like they have like coccyx pain, like so that'll be the cutout there, so you don't put direct pressure through that. Is usually what you see.